Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back to our weekly wellness show with Angela and Sophia at Heritage Radio 90.6 FM. Remember, you can email your comments to our station on info@heritageradio.org.uk, and we'll be, delighted to hear your feedback, ideas, and everything you want to share with us. So today, Angela, what are we going to talk about?
Today we're going to have two lovely people here talking to us about cycling, Suzanna and James. And we'll learn all about the different cycling activities in Manchester. And we'll talk about our own experiences too. So
yes, and I think hopefully we'll also have time to talk about as well if someone is not really keen on cycling, how you can get a bit more active by walking. So inshallah, another really sort of packed full of information.
Encouraging people to be active.
So Angela, I think we have to do something first and foremost for our listeners. What is it?
Well, since we're talking to a Muslim audience, we just wanted to mention the little, sometimes women are not encouraged to ride bikes or ride horses or anything that has to do with riding. So we wanted to remind our listeners of Hawla bin Azwar, who was a Muslim female warrior and a companion of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. She was described as one of the greatest warriors in history and was once compared with Khalid bin Walid. And she was well known for her bravery in campaigns of Muslim conquest and part of what today is known as Syria, Jordan, and Palestine. I'm reading this, you guys, so be patient. So she was part of a lot of campaigns. She was sister to someone named Dirar, and he was caught by the Byzantines, and she actually rode out as a warrior, and she helped get him back. So
that's amazing.
It cannot have been done if it wasn't allowed. You guys know how people feel about being strict in their religion, so you guys have to stop worrying that it's not allowed. It is allowed. It's very good for you, and we should all go out and do it if we can safely.
Yeah, and we did actually look up a fatwa. So from islamqna.info, there's a basic principle that it is permissible for a woman to ride animals just as women used to ride camels and so on at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. In Al-Bukhari and Muslim, there was a narration from Abu Huraira that said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, "The best women who ride camels are the women of Quraysh," so indicates obviously that they were riding. And obviously they conclude by saying that if you are modestly dressed, so it's up to you to decide what that is, inshallah. But there is no real issue in terms of what we understand, and we have been happily riding bikes and riding horses, and no one will make me stop this. So this is time to introduce our two guests. So we have Suzanna Gayton-Moon, she's the Senior Active Travel Officer, and James Mulholland, who is the Active Travel Officer. We've been working with them on a couple of shows already in the past. On walking, we had Beth, their colleague, come over, and we'll have other shows as well, Muslim Women in Sports, etc. So we have a nice little program with our friends at Transport for Greater Manchester.
Yeah,
so,
I want to hear all about what to do, where to go.
Exactly. So Suzanna, just as we prepared the show, you were telling me that you had also done a bit your research about the Muslims, sort of some Muslim myths about riding. It's probably not even just in Islam. There's probably other communities that believe that riding is not appropriate, or that it can cause some issues. Are you okay to tell us more about that? What you've understood and found?
Yeah, sure. It was so we've recently done a series of cycle training sessions for a group of Muslim women in Rochdale, and it was just anecdotally that we'd heard that there was something in the community around sort of women being injured by riding a bike. and this has obviously caused quite a lot of disruption to the community. So it's very important that we emphasise that we can make sure that the bikes are properly fit for the ladies involved. So I've got what we call a step-through bike. So it doesn't have a high bar, so it's easier to get on and it's much more comfortable. And we have a lot of different types of bikes, different heights and things like that. So we can, the instructors that provide the cycle training can measure and everything like that. So a bike is supposed to be comfortable. So that's one of the ways that we can sort of help women, I think, feel more comfortable when riding bikes as well. So that was, just an anecdote that we'd heard that was obviously causing people to not take part in cycling, and we're keen to say that you can take part, and that we'll try and make it as safe and as comfortable as possible. So
that's brilliant. There's another myth as well, because this is the wellness show. We talk about all sorts of issues, and so don't be embarrassed if you want to ask us a question. But there's also a myth that when you ride a bike, you might break your hymen, which I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
So is there anything that...
No.
No, exactly. Thank you very much. That's all we need to hear. There is no evidence.
No, definitely not, no.
So, perfect. So
very safe to ride a bike. Did you also, when you get a bike, you can get it adjusted to your height, right? So
yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, and I'm quite small. I'm 5'3", so
I'm shorter even. I can't find a bike my height, so
I have to wear like a children's helmet and things like that because my head's quite small. So you just have to work with what you've got, haven't you? And we've got trained instructors that can help you position your bike. And I didn't realise that my seat was too low, and that was causing me more pain kind of in my thighs, and I wasn't sort of able to cycle that far, and it was all to do with where the seat was positioned. So there's lots of things that we can do to sort of help people feel more comfortable. So that's an important part when you come to our training.
Great.
That's really good. So Angela, have you had any experience of cycling?
I could ride a bike, especially when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn to ride a bike to go to at the time we were living in Greece, and in order to go to grade 9, I would call it year 9 here, you had to take a bike or the bus, and somehow I got to learn over the summer the bike, and got a bike and went, and I really love it. It gives you a lot of freedom. It's walking is really good, but that bike is just that extra bit better, right? And you go faster. It's interesting. Now that I'm older, I have tried getting a bike here in the UK, but it wasn't my height, and I didn't know the ins and outs of where to go, so I eventually gave it away. But also I don't know the rules. I think they're different from Canada, the rules. For example, I was told you're not allowed to ride on the sidewalk, though I think even in Canada now it's not allowed. But I feel unsafe on the road because people beep. So I don't know, I have to just get over that and just try it because it's really good exercise.
Yeah. What we did, I have with all of our children, we got them a bike, and then we went out and about. I live in Salford, so in Eccles, so there's some nice riding along the canal. But personally, I found it really stressful because you have the cars coming quite close to you. It was a few years ago when they were younger, and cars not respecting the fact that if you're on the main road cycling, you are like a car, and they would turn into the left road and just right in front of you and beep. I'm like, well, I'm on my road.
So you're not allowed on the sidewalk here? Or it's not recommended.
So I don't know, maybe James, what the rules is about cycling on pavement?
Well, basically, as cyclists, we're encouraged to cycle on the road and take a dominant position in the road, so you feel safe as you. So, for example, if you're coming to junctions, you should take the dominant position in the road, so you're not squashed into the side, or you put into where there could be potholes or drains and things like that. So you're in more vulnerable position if you do that, you see. But in terms of riding on the pavement, if children do it and things like that, the police aren't going to stop you for that kind of thing. But this is why we provide the training and for people to give them a confidence to ride on the roads where we think cyclists should be, because there is a bit of a perception with people not feeling safe on the roads, which we don't think is fair or right, really. So if we give people confidence, and as the cycle network, the B network, is growing in Greater Manchester, there's more roads, designated cycle lanes for people to cycle on and feel more confident and safe. So yeah,
I think at the time my children had researched whether they were allowed to go.
Sorry.
Alhamdulillah. They had researched what was the size of the wheel that they were legally allowed to be on. I can't remember what inches it was, but basically it was the equivalent of a medium-sized child bike. And if the size of the wheel is bigger than that, you have to be on the road. I mean, you still see some adults and older people going on, and generally, unfortunately, they're the ones who are in danger because they're really zoomed down, and then you turn into a corner and you're just like, oh, you're just faced with one of those guys on bikes. But when they were younger, I felt happier if they could be on the pavement, definitely. Now, you mentioned the B network. So I drive a lot, and I am not one of those who think that cars should have all the space and this should not be space for anyone. I think it should really be shared, that space. And our British cities are not designed anyway originally for so many cars, and so
it's not even designed for walking.
It's not at all. in some parts,
space to walk.
But you can see how much has been built and done over the last few years. It's quite amazing. Down Chorlton Road, for any one of you who goes down Chorlton Road, it's amazing. You've got this. They call it Dutch cycling path, don't they?
Yeah.
So it's quite nice to see. Obviously, it makes the road narrower for cars there. You have to drive slower, which is not bad. But you have. I can imagine as a cyclist, you must feel a lot safer. And what they mean by Dutch path is that it's not just marking on the floor. You also have physical dividers. They're not bollards. Some roads have got bollards. I think on Stratford Road you have bollards, but on this is just sort of concrete blocks on the ground. Yeah. And I would imagine in Salford, I've noticed that's very new. They've redone all the road markings and they've done proper cycling marking with big green. And more specifically, when you go to junctions now, that green colour continues into the junction. So physically, I think as a car driver, you think more when you turn into the left, like what happened to me when I was cycling. When you turn to left, you can see this on the floor, and you anticipate, oh, if there's a cyclist, actually I have to give them way. They don't have the right of way. So yeah, the council has allocated, I think that was a 2018 figure. They announced that Greater Manchester Combined Authority allocated £160 million to kickstart the project. So the spending on cycling and walking now is about £15 per head per year, which is almost putting us on a par with livable cities, like great livable cities that we know, like Amsterdam. Amsterdam is the most famous one, but Copenhagen as well. So that would include, when it's finished, obviously, 1,800 miles of routes, including 400 miles of those Dutch-style segregated bike lanes, and it will be the largest joined-up system of walking and cycling routes in the UK. So hey, if anyone is in Manchester listening to this show and not sure whether they should settle down in Manchester, do. Yeah. So James, you're a cyclist. What can you tell us about all this?
Well, talking about that, I cycle to work every day. I live in Levenshulme and I go into the centre of Manchester, and I've seen over the last 10 years, I've seen this change in cycling and walking as well in Manchester. But the amount of cyclists on the roads is, for example, it was about a month ago at the traffic lights, I counted the number of cyclists there, and there was about 25 cyclists on the Oxford Road corridor.
Wow.
Whereas about 5 or 6 years ago, it might have been me and 3 other cyclists.
That's very good.
So we are going in the right direction, so we should be really confident that anyone who does want to get into cycling can be really confident to get out there, because as you mentioned, these Dutch style cycle lanes, the segregated ones, they're absolutely fantastic for cycling because you feel very safe. For example, you might know going through Rusholme, where they've put them there all the way through the Curry Mile as it's known. Really good. And the B network, obviously, as you mentioned, the aim is to link up central Manchester with all of the 10 boroughs around Manchester. So there'll be a central hub and like a hub and a spoke network going out to everywhere, so you can eventually cycle across the whole of Manchester without any severance lines, we call them. So no horrible A roads that you have to negotiate as a cyclist.
As somebody who doesn't ride but want to have that fear, if you did have a bike and you're doing all those lanes, where would you leave your bike? Where would you do with it?
Where would you lock it up?
Like, so there's going to be places in areas that you can lock your bike that's safe.
Yeah, so within our team, we've got various other colleagues deal with cycle parking, and they're constantly working with different community groups, and we're doing it ourselves with the Cycle and Stride for Active Lives scheme, where we're giving out cycle parking or encouraging people to apply for it, and the council put in cycling lock-ups, so Sheffield stands they're called, where they almost look like a U shape. You might have seen them around, where you can lock your bikes to them. Designated lock-ups, almost like sheds where you can be locked with a locking key.
That's really good.
And they're all dotted around Manchester now, so they are available, and you can get locks pretty cheaply now. Good U locks from various places to lock your bikes up, so it's not really a major issue.
So just a technical point: how would you recommend people lock up their bikes to keep them the safest?
Well, as a cyclist, to be the safest, I'd recommend what we call a U-lock, which is it's just a solid piece of metal like steel, and you'd lock your bike up to a metal post or Sheffield stand, or take it in a building. Some places let you do that now. Places of work are getting better at that. But you can buy chains as well that do the
so
same job.
Would you do it like the front wheel, the back wheel, two of them? What would you? How would you do it to make it the best?
You can. So the very best option, if you are worried about it getting stolen, is you can have a U-lock, a D-lock, as they're called, and then you can get an extension cable, which are a few pounds, which go around the front and back wheels and lock into the D-lock, so prevent anyone stealing the wheels as well.
Yeah, because if you just do your front wheel, I mean, it's harder, I've heard, to steal a back wheel. So generally, if you haven't got the choice, do lock up your front wheel with the metal bar of your bike, and then whatever else you're locking it into. Because the front wheel is the one that generally you see the poor bike on the side, and it's just missing the front wheel.
Yeah, it's the quick release wheels that are the easy ones. They've got quick release and you can take them off. But if they're bolted, it's not really a problem. And just having a good lock on is enough to deter people. You know, I've been lucky with not having bikes stolen over the years. So as long as you've got a lock on, people will stay away usually. Yeah. So.
And at Metrolink stations as well, there's more provision to actually have like a locker that people, so if they want to use the tram for part of their journey, they can cycle from their home to the tram stop and then lock up the bike there, and then continue their journey on the tram. There's also some cycle hubs at various interchanges across the city as well, so you don't have to necessarily cycle the whole way. You can do part of your journey, and then there's a secure place to leave your bike as well.
That's really good. It sounds like I mean, I suspect mayors go around different cities in Europe and other places as well, get inspired from what's been done elsewhere and try and emulate the success stories. And we've all been very jealous of Holland. I mean, obviously Holland, it's kind of a natural, progression for them from, they are very flat land, it's easy to cycle. I suppose maybe it's a little bit windier, but if you live in Sheffield, I've heard it can be quite challenging. Manchester is mostly flat with some slight hills, isn't it? Is it
Yeah.
mainly?
The central areas, when I'm cycling, we are quite lucky and then it is quite flat really, but as soon as you get towards the peaks it can be, you might want a few gears on your bike.
Yeah. Do you, question, do you, is it allowed to bring a bike on the tram or public transport? Any public transport it isn't, is it?
Trams, it's not allowed at the moment, but you can take it on a train. So normally on the local trains, there'll be a couple of carriages that have special spaces for cycles. So they're normally sort of near the toilets actually as well. So you see people.
So you just go in, bring your bike, and you don't need to do a special booking or whatever.
I think for longer train journeys, I think you do have to book. So I'll just double check.
But local ones. I mean, obviously, everyone, if you're thinking of doing this, just check online before you do anything to make sure you're not going on the wrong side of the law and end up being fined or being in trouble. Not being able to do what you want to do. So we're going to take a short break, and when we continue, we're going to have a look more in depth into how we can get you all cycling. So we are back now to talk about cycling and walking and how we can get you to cycle a little bit more, be a bit more active. And we are with the Transport for Greater Manchester Cycle and Stride team. We have James and Suzanna.
And I'm going to ask you guys, tell us about the barriers to cycling and the new driver's rules.
Okay, so I can talk from experience in terms of barriers to cycling. So it's a ridiculous story, but when I was about 8, I fell off my bike and I still got a scar on my eyebrow, and that really put me off. And then I had a friend who was in quite a bad accident and broke his collarbone and his shoulder and things like that. So it really, it put me off. So I think it's working with how you feel. And for me, I started just cycling off-road for leisure purposes, so trying to enjoy it. There's a lot of off-road routes around Greater Manchester, so like the Fallowfield Loop, for example. And I think it's that sort of just trying, giving it a go and doing it for fun and doing what you feel comfortable with, and then maybe building that up. So I didn't get to the stage where I was going to cycle to work because I'm still a bit, afraid of the traffic. But I haven't had any sort of formal training as yet. So TFGM do free cycle training for people. So they do a learn to ride course that you can do in groups. It's completely free. We also do family sessions. So it could be a mum and a dad and a couple of children that could go together and do a route. And then we also do one-to-one cycle training. So if you're more nervous and you need to kind of build up your confidence, it could just be you and an instructor. And this is all completely free. So one of the things that I was going to do was go on these courses myself to sort of build up the confidence and things like that. So I think it's important to just take it kind of at your own pace and start doing things how you want to, and that might sort of build up into sort of commuting or going to the shops and things like that. I think there's other issues around. Manchester's not great in the rain, is it? So it's making sure that you've got the right clothing and the right equipment. When I speak to James when he comes in cycling, he always says that he feels so much better from cycling in, and it wakes him up and he sort of feels more prepared for the day. So it's kind of working out what the benefits are as well, and just getting used to it, I think.
Yeah, definitely, James. There's a few benefits linked to exercise that you may be feeling. Then when you do that, you've got raised heart rate, which leads to greater heart health, stronger immune system, healthier brain, because you've got increased blood flow. So you arrive at work, you might be a bit sweaty, but your brain's working better. Yeah. You've got more muscles, that means a more efficient metabolism. That can lead to weight loss, better sleep. You also get a stronger pelvic floor, and believe me, men as well can have pelvic floor issues in later life. So that is there are a lot of physical benefits to cycling, definitely. So apparently there was a study conducted by the University of Glasgow where they studied 260,000 individuals over the course of 5 years, and they proved this is my French confused brain that comes proved that that can cut the risk of developing heart disease and cancer in half. So that's quite a massive thing. And there's another thing that I like about cycling as well, when from my sort of fitness side of things, when I encourage people to be active, is when you've not been active before, is to find a low impact sport, and cycling is definitely gentle on the joints, because you're not supporting yourself, you're not jumping up and down, you're not running hitting the ground. So there's much less incidence of muscle damage, inflammation, and delayed onset of muscle soreness, basically the sore muscles the day after. It strengthens the muscles around the knee, the calves, the ankle. It helps with your mobility. You've got stronger glutes, which is the bone muscles, core and upper body. The only thing it doesn't do is it doesn't really increase bone density because it isn't high impact. So it's good to add strength training if you can. But these are the kind of general good positive impact. But one thing that may be interesting to hear from you, James, is how you feel about being in the car fumes when you cycle. Have you felt like it's affected you, or?
Yeah, well, luckily for me, no, I haven't really felt the effects of that, but they are there, and sometimes you can feel them when you inhale them. But obviously, because of COVID, everyone's got used to wearing masks, so if you are worried about that, you can put a mask on. True. And it's actually more comfortable to wear that outside as well, because you've got the fresh air, so you don't notice it as much. And I've worn one the odd time going up Oxford Road, so that is a possibility. Obviously, with the segregated cycle lanes as well, there are options to get further away from the road now. Going to the Oxford Road corridor, through parks, for example. You could go through Platfield Park up that way, or anywhere you are in Greater Manchester. You can plan a route which avoids major roads. With this, you might go a little bit of a further distance round. You might add quarter of a mile onto your journey, but it'll be a lot more enjoyable, and you'll feel a lot safer.
Residential areas that are not as busy.
So as you said, there's all these well-being benefits in terms of physical health, but also mental health, and it's a very sociable thing. And you get to see parts of Manchester that you wouldn't see otherwise.
It's a slower pace, isn't it?
When you're in a car, you drive on an A road and it's really dull and boring, and there's cars, tailbacks and things. But when you're on a bicycle, you get to go through parks, take your time. You could do it with friends, and you could make it into a social event every week to do it. So in fact,
I imagine sometimes if you actually go by bike at rush hour, you might actually be quicker than a car.
You are. Yeah. I go from my example. I can only speak.
It's great. I want to hear about your example.
Levenshulme to Manchester, going at a very easy pace, so that I don't get too sweaty, so I'm able to work. It takes me about 25 minutes, and it's going really leisurely pace, and that is quicker than me trying to get in the car, drive to town, trying to find a parking space, and then go to work.
And less expensive. Yeah, my husband did that as well, from Eccles to the centre, and he would then use one of those private hubs. You have showers and everything, so that's quite practical. Well, in fact, I did find a study. I love studies, and because they do give some really good scientific proof to what you do, so you're more motivated. In actual fact, James, people who ride a bike are actually exposed to fewer dangerous fumes than those who travel by car. And that was a study by a Healthy Air campaign at King's College London and Camden Council. And they had air pollution detectors fitted to a car driver and a bus driver and a cyclist and a pedestrian. And the results showed that the car driver experienced 5 times higher pollution levels than the cyclist.
Oh wow! I didn't know that actually. So that's really interesting.
So there you go. I just wanted to hear your first, your first experience as a cyclist, and then you can actually reassured.
I think it's because when in the car fumes, you turn on the heater, don't you? And it comes directly into the car,
into your face.
Yeah.
So bus drivers were a bit less exposed because they're higher pedestrians. Obviously, they're all at the same level. I think the worst for them are children in prams because they're exactly at the level of the. So if you've got a pram, that's also on wheels. Just try and avoid big main roads for a long time if you can. But yeah, so
I think the more people that do take up cycling and walking as well, the less traffic and cars that are on the road.
Exactly.
So, there's those environmental concerns. So obviously we want to try and reduce our carbon emissions.
Yeah.
And that's part of this whole kind of project from TFGM is trying to get people out of the cars, and then that's going to benefit everybody at the end of the day as well.
Can you? I know I already asked, but I think I asked it together with another question. The rules for new drivers, or is it new rules for the drivers
to protect cyclists?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's recently been some changes to the highway code. So that the example that you gave earlier about if you're a car and you've got a bicycle on your inside, is that the right one?
Yeah.
Inside that's turning left, and obviously as a driver you always have to look into your mirror. So there's new rules that give priority, I think. Am I right, James?
Yeah, for cycling and walking.
Yeah.
Anyone walking.
So the cyclist going forward on the main road has priority over the car that's turning left. You have to stop, let the cycle. It makes sense. Because why ask a cyclist who's on the main road to constantly stop for you and check behind the shoulder that the car is going to turn, whatever. It's up to you, the driver, who's coming onto that junction to make sure it's safe to turn.
Well, yeah, basically anyone who's more vulnerable has the right of way, cycling, walking, because if you're in a car, you're protected by this big sheet of metal around you, aren't you? So you have to make allowances for that.
Talking about safety, you mentioned about rush home and the Curry Mile. Now guys, if you go out and about to the restaurant, I just do recommend to have a look before you cross the road, because we forget. You can't go from the pavement onto the road and cross. You've got to first look if there's a bike zooming down, because they do zoom fast. Fair enough, it's their lane and they want to go. They do zoom very fast. You can be injured very badly by a cyclist hitting you, and you can't always necessarily stop on time. So do you consider these lanes like a car lane?
Yeah, a bell. I've got a bell on my bike, and that's really helpful when I cycle through rush home. If you just tinkle your bell a little bit, and people do hear it, they turn around and they're able to get out.
Yeah, I think it's a process for everyone to get used to each other with this new heightened presence of.
Definitely. And you were talking about Amsterdam before, so one of the things that's also new in the highway code is this the Dutch reach, where as a driver you reach, because the natural inclination is to open your door with your right hand, whereas in Holland apparently they reach with
turn around. Yes, they reach with the left,
and that means that you're facing.
That's a very good tip.
You have to turn around.
Yeah. You've got an awareness if there's a bike coming, because if you just open your door without looking and a cyclist goes over, it's so that's one of the things that I think is really good to just be aware of as well.
That's a really good suggestion. Let me see. Yes, we should just have a quick break for the Deli Adhan, and then we'll just conclude. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, yarhamukallah.
Some kind of dust.
Yes, probably. So, just to round up, sort of towards the end of the show now, what can you tell us about the cycling and walking initiative as well, to get everyone out and about, especially spring is around the corner, hopefully.
Well, we're going to buy bikes now and getting ready to go.
Yeah. Get out there, ready for the hot summer.
Hopefully, we can always hope.
Yeah.
The UK.
Well, obviously I've mentioned the TFGM offer for cycle training, so there's lots of courses pretty much every week, so you can find those on the website, which we'll give you the details of later on. Excuse me. We're also doing a a Cycle and Stride for Active Lives project at the moment, which is funded by the London Marathon Charitable Trust. And that's the first large project of its kind outside of London. And basically we've got £1 million of money to help marginalised groups, people that experience more barriers to cycling and walking, to get active basically across Greater Manchester. Excuse me, I've got a bad throat now. So we've currently got 30 groups on the programme, and we're going to build up to 60 groups by the end of the programme, which is in 2024. And we help them with support, so we provide grants so they can buy bikes and equipment and storage for bikes. We can support leaders of the groups and so-called champions to learn how to lead a ride or lead a walk, or first aid training, whatever it is that they need. We've got online resources as well to sort of support them, and workshops. And it's basically just helping people get out there and set up a project in their community. And a lot of them are sort of vulnerable communities or people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. A lot of them are from ethnically diverse communities as well. So that's the main project that James and I work on. And so we've got quite a few initiatives through that. So we've got, as I say, over 30 groups on board at the moment, but we will be taking on some more. So if anyone's interested in getting involved, then we'll give our email address as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's a good point. You can mention this now if you want, and we'll repeat it at the end of the show.
Yeah, so for any general information about active travel, there's a TFGM website, which is activetravel.tfgm.com. And that will take you to a page where you can look at what's going on in your area. You can look at the walking provision, cycling provision, things like that. There will be a specific Cycle and Stride page for our project. I think that's going to go live probably next week. And then if you want to get in touch with James and I, you can email us directly, and that's at cycleandstride@tfgm.com. So if you have any questions or want to get involved, just email us.
Brilliant. We'll repeat them at the very end of the show, but also remember, if there's anything you've missed, just email us at info@heritageradio.org.uk, and we'll pass on all the information that you need. So we talked a lot about cycling, so that includes walking as well. So it's
Yes,
everything.
Yeah, so our emphasis is on cycling and walking, but it also does include some other activities. So one of our groups, they're called the Blue Tits, and they do cold water swimming. So, which I think is I
am very tempted. That's next on my not next on my list. No, it's at the bottom of my list because I'm really scared.
Oh, it's so
but
good.
I am really intrigued.
Yeah.
Cold water swimming.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think some people are doing sort of running clubs as well. So the London Marathon Trust have quite a broad remit, and it's about physical activity for everybody and getting everyone involved, whereas our remit is a bit more focused towards cycling and walking.
Out of curiosity, where would you do cold water swimming in the Northwest?
There's a lot of places.
Lots of places, yeah.
Like there's
Sail Water Park.
yeah.
There's somewhere at Media City as well. The
Salford Keys.
Salford Keys. This group, I can't remember where they go, but there's quite a few in North Manchester. I think some of the reservoirs you can swim in, but not all of them, so you don't do it without
Knowing for
advice.
sure.
No, generally you have to do it with a group because anything can happen, and
especially at this time of year when it is really cold. Well, I went to a place in Cheshire to try it in November, and that was fantastic. I think the water was about 11 degrees. But you do it in a controlled environment, and it does give you massive.
Cold
highs,
swimming is really good for your health. So.
Yeah,
definitely.
really, physical and mental well-being is really well documented, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot. I mean, obviously, everything you mentioned covers the whole of Greater Manchester, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
So anywhere you are, whether it's completely in the north in Rochdale, west Eccles, or Salford, south Stockport, east, wherever, there will be something for you. Bolton as well. But from my end in Salford, there's something called Salford Health Improvement Service, and they have different teams that work on improving the health and well-being of local people. So there are ladies only walks, there are general walks as well around Salford, bike rides, tennis for beginners, curling, healthy eating programs. So, and there's also couch to 5K programs. So beyond just what we talked about today, there's so much going on around the city to help you get out and improve things.
Yeah, and our colleague Beth, who was here a couple of weeks ago, she's part of Greater Sport and GM Moving. So they have a website with loads of walks that you can look up. They're doing a walking festival in May as well. And then just around in this area as well, there's so much, like just across in Alexandra Park, there's the Bike Hive. And I think that's the thing is just sort of finding out what's available, and there is so much.
Yeah. So, for instance, give us a quick roundup. What do they do at the Bike Hive in Alexandra Park? Do you know in details or?
Yeah, so I think you might know better than me, but they certainly do cycle training around the park.
So when you say cycle training, is that to teach someone who's never been on a bike to know how to ride?
Yeah, so they do that, and ride leader training, so people learning how to ride bicycles, and then people who can already ride bikes do ride leader training, and that's something we offer as well, and we're working with Bike Hive to do that, where if you wanted to take 5 other people in your community out on a ride, you could go on this day training and you get a certificate to say that I'm a ride leader and you've qualified, and you can safely take other people on rides and negotiate roads and things like that, and yeah, so that's good. We're actually doing a few sessions. There's a place called Boiler House, which is very close to where we are here, in Moss Side. We're doing a session in March, and we're also doing some ride leader, so that's for walk leader training. We're doing some ride leader training as well, which is actually booked in at the moment for about the 23rd of April. So if anyone wants to go on that, we know it's been advertised before, but we really encourage people to get in touch with us if they want to go on this ride leader, the course, and that one's at Gorton Community Centre on the 23rd of April, that one at the moment.
And again, anyone from anywhere in Greater Manchester can go. You don't have to be from the local community, the local borough.
Yeah, anybody can.
Yeah.
Right. That's really good. I can't say I'm going to jump on my bike now and I have to dust it first.
I'm gonna go on my bike at home, the indoor bike.
Right, this is what Angela and we do.
We do have indoor bikes.
We have an indoor bike, and occasionally we have called each other on a video call and gone on the bike
while
and
we're talking.
Yeah.
So you
just need to take the next step.
Yeah.
To go to a park or something maybe.
Yeah.
And do it around a park and get the fresh air. And
Alexandra Park actually is amazing for cycling around. You can cycle kilometres around it. They're really big parks, and you don't even have to go anywhere near a road. So yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Yeah, we have. This is one of the things that it's to the issue of when you live in a very built-up area, to go from that place into somewhere where you can actually cycle and enjoy the cycle. If you have a big enough car, you can take your, or if you can put your bike on the back of on a bike rack, that might be an option to do, with something that we have done in the past as well. And that's quite enjoyable. But also, I think one of the things that we have done with our children when they were younger is just to walk with the bike on the pavement where you don't feel safe, walking with next to your bike, that's across roads. Anytime we were feeling like, oh, that's a little bit scary, we just walk. And then once we're on the path along the canal or wherever, then that's free ride. It's very comfortable.
Definitely. And I think that is just building up your confidence and starting in a park or off-road and then maybe contemplating a bit of traffic.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's making yourself gradually used to the idea of being in that environment, a public environment for some, but also being next to cars, because they can feel quite intimidating. So it's just getting used to them. And
there's a group actually that I don't know if you've heard of. They're called Joy Riders, and they set up in London, and I think the lady that set up was a Muslim lady, and they are bringing now rides to Greater Manchester, and they're women-only rides. I think they only do stuff in South Manchester at the moment, but they're going to build up. So that's an option as well. If
to do it with someone.
Yeah, if you want to go along with a friend, or if you want to be in a woman-only environment, I think there's things available there as well.
Yeah, I think it's quite useful if you can do it in a group or with someone. It's motivating when you feel safe in numbers. Yeah. And again, as you were mentioning, if you find a group where there's a proper leader, you know that they'll know what to do. You'll just have to follow.
So if I wanted to buy, like, I think it's the last question. If I wanted to buy a bike, I go and buy a bike. How do I make sure it's my size? Like, is there a place in any shops where you can take your bike and they can adjust it? What do you do?
I think if you go to buy a bike, they will normally advise you when you buy a bike.
So it's better to buy it in a shop, not say on Amazon.
I would say so. I know that if you go into like Halfords or something like that.
Okay, Halfords.
Help you find the right size, and then they will adjust. And also they do, I think, basic mechanics, don't they, on checking that everything is safe. We also do a basic maintenance course as well. So if you want to learn how to
that's great.
Check your own bike and make sure it's safe, so we do something called an M check.
And there are quite a few independent bike shops as well.
Yes.
That generally they know their community, they know they're good places to go to.
Yeah, I really like the community bike shops, and there are ones. A lot of places springing up now, like locally around here, but wider in Greater Manchester, where you can get second-hand bikes that have been fixed up by mechanics. For example, at Platfields Park, there's Platfields Bike Hub there.
That's really good ideas, because they can be quite pricey.
Expensive, yeah.
So and it's cheaper, and you know that they're safe, and you can go to places like that. So yeah, I'd encourage everyone to find your local shop as well. Just go and speak to someone.
There might be one in Rochdale.
Yeah.
There will be. I'll get your contact.
Yes,
thank you.
So shall we say again your contact details, where to find you if anyone wants to know more and join any of your activities?
Yeah. So the website is activetravel.tfgm.com, and on there you can see everything, all the cycle maintenance, cycle training offer that we provide. There's buttons you can click and you can sign up to them. I think the beginner's training, as Suzanna said, was about £5 for maintenance. There's a slightly more advanced course which is about £25. But if you just want the basic course, it's only £5 to do that. And then if you've got any queries at all, just get in touch with us. And that email address is cycleandstride@tfgm.com, and me and Suzanna will pick up on that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So just a roundup of some of the tips that we came up, Angela and I. We thought, obviously, our own experience. It's nice to exercise and especially cycle if you can with a friend. But as we said, we use our phone podcasts, or we can listen to Heritage Radio as you do your exercise. So that's on the exercise point of view. But if you want to go out and about,
you can go with a friend. I go every Saturday with a friend, and we walk.
That's brilliant.
But that's the next step is let's get bikes out. And
why not? So rope in a friend is always a good way. Make it a fun day out. You can, as we said today, you can rent a bike in a park. You can use disused rail tracks, for instance, in the Peak District. That's lovely. So you can plan a cycling or walking route with a nice view. And you can walk more as you go shopping. Just go out, your daily activity. Cycle to your local shops. Or if you want to take it a bit more seriously, you cycle to work like James does.
Yeah, that's really
inspired.
Amazing. It's inspiring.
Just on the website as well, you might have mentioned before, but there's on the Active Travel website, there's everything. There's a cycling for women section, loads of resources, isn't there? It's not just about the training, so yeah.
That's brilliant. No, it sounds like it's really covering every aspect, and anyone who was not inspired today, then try and be and just get out of a bit of your comfort zone. You might be very surprised.
And if you miss anything, please don't forget to email us your comments. If you like the show, not only if you don't like the show, please send a message.
Is there anyone?
There is. Just in case, at info@heritageradio .org.uk, info@heritageradio.org.uk with your good comments.
Yes,
Thank
we'd
you.
love to hear from you, and suggestions as well. Anything you'd like
Ideas
us to
for
talk and
future
research.
shows.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got
Okay.
lots of ideas, but we always
We need new
happy.
ideas. Yeah, we can always use new ideas. So,
It was lovely having you, James.
Yeah, thank you for
and Suzanna.
coming.
Pleasure.
Thank
Thanks
you for
very
having
much.
us.
And Assalamu alaikum wa
see you
rahmatullahi
next week.
wa barakatuh, inshallah.